Hi all, good afternoon. In today's session, we are going to see, let me share my screen first. Please let me know whether it is visible or not. Okay, so in last session, hope you guys remember, we have seen the generate series and why we use the generate series. It will generate the series of values. We have generated some series of values with respect to decimal and integers and also with the dates, right? So hope you guys remember and what are all the main advantage of using the generate series. And we did it with the select query alone, right? So this is the thing which we have seen in the last class. In today's session, we are going to see about the group by class. So this is very, very important topic. Please try to do it parallelly with me. I hope you guys are having the data set with you. So this is the data set which we have created, right? And I have told you how to create this also, right? This is the invoice data set which we have created, right? And we loaded everything in the Postgres. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the Postgres shell. Okay, so I will increase my font size. This is enough. Okay, this is the data set which we are using, and this consists of invoice details consist of invoice ID, item ID, quantity, rate, and value, right? And invoice master is having invoice ID and the date. And we have already seen about the relationship between this invoice master and invoice details, item master and item invoice details, right? Using this primary key and foreign key relationship and everything. Now, in today's session, the topic is group by, right? So, you people already know about the group by through this Excel. We have already seen what is mean by group by through this Excel, right? Hope you guys remember the pivot table. See here, these are all the two columns which I am selecting. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the pivot table. Okay. So what this pivot table will do, see I need the existing and I see here I'm going to do the pivot table. What this pivot table will do, I'm selecting the item group and read. See here, this is the item group, right? In the item group, we are having rice, oil, veg, and pulses. These are all the varieties inside the item group. What this item group, what this pivot table is doing, hope you guys remember what we did for this pivot table. So it will take this oil group alone and it will calculate the sum of all the oil. See here is the oil and it will calculate the sum of all this oil, right? With respect to the rate, sum of all the rate, right? And similarly, this rice also. So for each and every category inside this item group, okay, each and every category. This rice is one category, oil is one category, veg is one category. So for this all category inside this item group, okay, it calculated the sum for that particular, for all individual category. For all individual category, it calculated the sum. Similarly, we have already seen we can able to do the sum, right? See, we can able to do the sum and also we can able to do the count. We can able to do the average, min, max, product and everything. So what are these things? So in order to calculate the sum, count, average, I need one measurable field, right? So that is, here we have used the rate field. That one measurable field, we need to calculate the average. We need to calculate the minimum and sum of all that rate. For what rate? The rice rate. that oil rate. So for each group, we have calculated, right? Hope you guys remember this concept, pivot table concept, which we have seen during the Excel itself, right? So this pivot table concept, the same thing, we are going to apply it in Postgres. Okay. So this some count, average, min, max, and everything, these are all called as an aggregate functions. Aggregate functions. Why we are using aggregate function? In order to calculate some, for example, the sum of all the rice items, sum of all the oil items, sum of all the, so for each and every category, it is calculating. So we are going to use the group by class to group the column, okay, to group the items, what are all the categorical items present inside the table for that particular column. Okay, for that particular column, we are going to do the group by, and we are going to calculate sum of or average of or minimum maximum count of anything by using the aggregate functions. Okay, the same thing we are going to do it in our Postgres. So this is called as group by class. Okay, group by class used to group the rows that have sum of values in a specific column. Okay, or a set of columns. Hope you guys understanding this group by concept. Why we are using group by, right? So this count, sum, average, max, min. So these are all the example of aggregate functions. Using this aggregate function, after doing the group by, using this aggregate functions, it perform the calculation on the data which is in each group. For each group, you can see here, for each group, it performs some calculations. Here, I have used sum, right? It performs for each group. For each, this pulse is a one group, rice is one group, and veg is one group. So for each group, it performs some calculations, and which returns the single result for the each group. Okay. So this count, what this count will return? It will return the number of rows in an each group. Sum will return the sum of columns in an each group. And similarly, the average, it returns the average of the columns in an each group. For each group, it returns an average. See here, for each group, it returns the sum. Similarly, if I choose the average, for each group, it will return the average, right? So here we have used all those things. Hope you guys remember the Excel pivot table concept. The same thing, we are going to do it using group by keyword and aggregate function in the Postgres. Okay, using the query. So similarly for min, max, and everything, it will return the minimum of that value in the each group of the column. So here is the syntax. Here is the syntax for the group by. Select column 1, column 2, column 3. You can give any number of columns and aggregate function of column, some column. And from table name where condition. Okay, with respect to some condition, I'm grouping these columns. Okay, so this is the syntax. I'm just copy pasting the syntax to you. Please try to work parallelly with me. Okay. Please try to work parallelly with me. Open your Postgres and go to your table, invoice table, which you have imported, which you have inserted inside the Postgres. So this is the table, right? These are all the three tables we have inserted inside the Postgres, right? Hope you guys remember. So now I'm going to connect it with my database, with our database called as NMDB class, right? So inside this, we are having, as usual, we are having the tables, invoice master, invoice details, and everything we are having, right? So now what I'm going to do is, see, you have to remember some important points with respect to this group by class. Okay. Say for when you are using the group by class, the result set is grouped by n columns, right? That you have specified. The result set you have grouped by, right? So in the aggregate function is applied to the data in a column that you have specified, and the single result is returned in the each group like this. The combination of a group by and the aggregate function which you have used, and it will return it as a single result. So this is the same format without this grand total. Okay, this particular one we will get it in the if you are using the group by query and aggregate function, we will get this as an output in the Postgres. Okay. And one more thing is, if any column is not, see here, if I'm using the column 1, column 2, column n, so if any column that has not used in the group by, you cannot give it in the select. Otherwise, it will raise an error. Okay, we will see that with an example now. Okay, I'm going to open my notepad. Just a minute. Here, I'm going to open this notepad. So we will start typing the queries. Okay. So these are all the queries which you have did in the last class, right? See, today is 13. So group by, right? So for example, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my invoice ID, items and everything. And what I need is I'm going to group it by the invoice ID. Okay, I'm going to just for the example purpose, in this invoice details, I'm going to group this invoice ID, right? So this 3 and 4, this all this 4 combined together form a one group, and this 5 also we used to get this invoice in a repeated form, right? So it can be repeated. So here it is a primary key, so it should be distinct, right? So in this invoice details, it is a foreign key, so it is repeated. So this is nothing but each transaction we did at this date. So this is the relationship between invoice details and master, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group this invoice ID. If it is for a unique column, we cannot able to group it, and there is no meaning of grouping also, right? So with respect to this invoice ID, here I'm going to group this, and I'm going to calculate the sum of this value. So the meaning is how for example, for the invoice ID 1, how much amount of the value, sum of the amount of values I got it as a transaction. For invoice ID, similarly for invoice ID 34, see here, it will sum all these rows. For this 34, it will sum all these rows and will get an output like this for each group. So what I'm going to do is select in INV ID, comma, whatever the columns you need, you can able to give. Comma, sum of what I need to do. So here the sum of value. I need to calculate the sum of this value. Sum of value or values. Okay, value. So value group by I'm using invoice ID here, or item ID. With respect to item ID also, we can able to do it. I will just give the invoice ID here. So that's all. Okay, from which table? What is the table name? INV. INV details. Okay. So select, these are all the column names from invoice details. So after from only you have to give this group by. This is the order. Okay. This is the order of first select and column names. This is the syntax. Okay. And after the from table name, and then group by column name. So this is very simple group by. Item ID is not there. Huh? See here, you can see here, this is the error which I have mentioned. So what is the second point? What are all the things you are giving in a select statement? I need to give, it is a must to give in the group by also. So this is the rule. This is the rule which we have seen, right? I have mentioned you this rule. So what I want to do is, see here, it is clearly mentioning that invoice item ID must appear in the group by class, right? Invoice item ID must appear. So what I need to do is I have to copy paste this. This is exception for this one. This is the aggregate function. Okay. So other than this, what are all the columns which you have mentioned in the select? Okay. Other than the aggregate function, what are all the columns you have given in the select must be in the group by also. So this is the rule. You can see here for this particular item ID, the item invoice ID, the item ID is this, and here is the sum. Okay. So if I want to do it for invoice ID alone, then you can delete the item ID and do it for invoice ID alone. See here, just for the invoice ID alone, for this particular ID. If you want to do it in an order wise, okay, if you want to arrange this particular selection, if you want to arrange this particular selection in a specific order, whether it is an descending order or ascending order. Order by, we have already seen why we are using this order by, right? We have already seen in many examples about this order by. Okay, so there is an error occurs near DESC, order by. So I will give just order by, it will automatically take the, okay, I need to mention the value, right? I need to mention, see, for this sum of values, I'm giving one alias name. Okay, for the sum of values, now I'm going to give one alias name as sum of values, and with respect to the sum of values, I wish to do some order by. Okay, so if I didn't mention anything in the order by, it will automatically take it as an ascending. Otherwise, if you want to do it in descending, then you have to give that DESC. Give it as an DESC. This one we have already seen, right? See here, for this invoice ID and the sum of value, here it is an alias name. For this sum of values, we have already do some ordering in the descending order. If you want to do it with an ID, then you can do it with an ID also. Okay, so this is the simple group by. What is the rule? What are all the statements in the select must be given in the group by. If I didn't give anything We have already seen one example. If I didn't give this item ID in the group, then it will raise an error like that we have seen, right? Item ID. So this will raise an error. So you have to be very, very careful. Okay. So by increasing the font size, oh, my Postgres got terminated. Okay, I will log in again. Okay, now I'm going to connect it with the NMDB class. NMDB class, right? And I'm going to, it is asking for, I copied the wrong thing. See here, now it will raise an error. Okay, see here, item ID must appear in the group by. So you have to be very, very careful while giving the group by and the select statement. Okay, so this is the first rule we have seen. And next thing what we are going to see is the order. Okay, the order of the column which you are giving in the group by, it determines the order of the groups in the result set, right? So in this order only it will do the group by. First it will group the invoice ID, and then according with respect to this invoice ID it will do the ordering for the item ID. So this is the order. Okay, this is the order of the group by. Okay, so what are all the things you have given in the group by, it will order accordingly, it will group it accordingly. Okay, so this is the next rule. Okay, for example, if I am grouping the item ID and then I am giving the invoice ID, let us see what is happening. You can see here, first it will order the item ID, and let me arrange this in the item ID itself. Okay, I'll arrange this in the item ID. Now it will be very clear for you. I'm just copying and pasting it here. Now you can see here. So it will arrange all the items accordingly first, and it will arrange the invoice ID with respect to this item ID. So this is the order. Okay, order of grouping. Okay. So we have seen the 3 points, right? We have seen the 3 important rules with respect to the group by. The first thing is what we have seen, when you use the group by class, the result set of the group by column that you specified in the aggregate function is applied to the data in a column that you specified as a single group of result, like this, right? As a single group of result. So this is the first thing we have seen. And second rule is, what are all the things you have given in the select statement, it must be given in the group by also. This is the second rule we have seen with respect to the group by. And third rule is, what are all the things you are doing in the ordering the column, what are all the things you are giving in the group by, in that same order only, first item ID and next invoice ID, with respect to the same order only, you will get the group by result also. Okay, so this is what we have seen so far. These are all the 3 things you have to keep it in your mind while doing the group by. Okay, hope you guys clear in this. Now the next thing what we are going to see is, see the difference between count star and count. Okay, so this is the next thing we are going to see. So these are all very, very simple concept. Please try to remember. So very, very simple thing which you which there is a probability of making mistake is very high. Okay, so these are all very basic things you have to remember. So count star and count the column, some column name, right? So the basic difference we are going to see. So for example, what I'm going to do is, okay, I will take the flight data set, okay? So here I don't have any null values. In this table, I don't have any null values, right? So all the tables are filled. So I will take the flight data set. So we have already seen about the flight data set, right? Hope you guys remember. I have given you one link to download the flight data set. That is a real-time data set. So I'm connecting it with the /e, connecting with the flight data set, flight data base, and what is the table name? See here, flight merge weather is my table name. I'm going to view the table name. I will just increase the font size. And now I'm going to view the table. So here it is. So here there are many null values are present. Okay. So the important thing is what is the main difference between count star and the count of column name is the count star will select all the column number of rows with the null values. Okay, but if I give any column name on specific, it will ignore or it will exclude the null values and give the count. So I will show you the difference. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select count star from what is the table name? Flight merge weather, right? So this is the table name. So now this will return, we can see this will return, this count star is nothing but one of the aggregate function in order to count the number of rows. Okay, so this will return again. I sorry for the interrupt. Again, I have instead of pasting it, I have pressed a Control C. PSQL. Okay, I'm going to connect it with the flight data set /c flight, right? So what is the table name? This is my table name. Let me keep all the structure of the table in front of you so that it will be easy for us to get the column names each and every time. Okay, now it will gives you the total number of rows with the null values. Okay, so totally I'm having 5,38,051 rows. Okay, this is the total number of rows with the null values. So now what I'm going to do is, let me take any one column with the null values. Okay, hope my tail number will have null values. Okay, I will take that count of. So I'm giving it inside the double quotes because while creating the table, there might be some space in the front and back of the table column name. Okay, for that only I'm using, in order to fetch the exact thing, for that I'm using the double quotes. Now you can see here count of tail number. It will return. See here, see the difference. You can see the difference of the count. I will increase the font size and show it to you. The total number of rows. The total number of rows is 5,38,051. Okay, but for this particular count of column, for this particular column, it will not consider, it will not consider the null values for this. Okay, it will gives me only the it exclude all the null values and gives me only the values present, number of values present inside the tail number. You can see the difference here. 5,35,981 only. So nearly there are 3,000 something. It's differing. There are that much of null values present in the tail number. Okay. So this is the main difference. This is the main difference. You have to keep it in your mind. This is one more rule or one more important point you need to keep it in your mind. That is the difference between count star and count of column name. Okay. So similarly, you can use it for any columns. Okay, just go and give a try for all the other columns also, and just see how many counts are there and how many null values are there. Okay. So the second, this is the first point. Okay, and now the second thing is what we are going to do is we are going to use the aggregate functions with and without group by. We are going to do the aggregate functions with and without. See, these are all very, very basic things about the group by. Okay, before starting some complicated queries with respect to group by, I want you to keep all these points in your mind before going for some complicated queries. Okay, so I can use the aggregate functions which I have mentioned here, right? So these are all some of the aggregate functions we are using in Postgres. Count, sum, average, max, min, and everything. So in order to do this aggregate function, you can do it with or without group by, right? So let us see how to do it. First thing, I will do it with group by. Okay. Now, what I want is I'm going to select some. Okay, I will take any column from here. See here, I will select some pressure value. Okay, so I'm going to select any, for example, maximum of pressure. So it will, if I give max of pressure, simply it will take all the rows. Okay, it will take in this table. There are 5,38,051 rows are there. It will take all the rows, and from that rows, it will calculate the maximum. Okay, maximum of pressure, and it will return that value. So select. Okay, first thing I will do it without. Okay, so that only the flow will be correct. So select. I will take it as a max of function, aggregate function. For which one? For I want to calculate the maximum amount of pressure among all this 5,38,000 rows. I'll give it in the double quotes as. So this alias name will comes in the table name. Okay, max or underscore max pressure from. So what is the table name? Light merge weather, right? So if I give like this, what it will do? It will calculate. It will calculate the maximum. See here, this is the maximum pressure. This is the maximum pressure value among this 5,38,051. Okay, so this is the maximum pressure. Now what I want is I want to calculate the maximum pressure for every origin. See here, here is my origin or destination. You can take anything as per your requirement. For every origin, what is the maximum pressure? Okay, what is the pressure? For that, now in order to calculate that, I need with group. right? I need it with group by. See here, I'm going to select the same thing, but it should be with the origin, right? So for origin, I will give it in the double quotes. And I have already told you, after this only I need to give the group by. Okay. So group by of what? Of which column I need to do the group by? Origin column, right? So for this origin, what I need is maximum pressure for each origin. So if I use the group by with some aggregate function, if I use this group by with some aggregate function, please try to remember what it will do. It will group all the same value in the specific column. Here that column is called as origin. So for the same values in the origin right? It will take all the values and it will group it and it will do the aggregate function. What the aggregate will do? It will calculate some calculation. Here I have did the max of, count of, min of, anything you can do it as per your requirement, and it will return it as a single group. Okay, and it will return it as a single group, single result set. Okay, so what I want to do is just a minute. Now I'm going to copy paste this. See here, for each origin, for ABE is the origin and it has given the maximum pressure among the, okay, and ABI is one origin and it calculated the maximum pressure among this origin. Similarly, for all the origins, see, I'm having this much of origins. Okay, so it goes on. So for all the origin, it grouped and calculated the maximum. So what if I want to know how many origins are present? Among this 5,38,000, for each origin, how many rows are there? So if I want to calculate that, if I want to see that, so this is the one which I, okay. So for this pressure count, okay. So among this origin, the count of how many pressures has been entered. Okay, what is the count of pressures? Count means it calculates the number of rows. Okay, it calculates the number of rows. Now you can see. So with this origin ABE, we are having 294 rows are there. With this ABI origin, we are having 222 rows are there with respect to the pressure. Okay, with respect to the pressure, not the count of the entire count of the origin, with respect to the pressure. Okay, maximum. I will change the name. It doesn't count pressure. So you need to give the alias name with some meaningful name. Okay. So hope you guys understood about the origin with understood about the group by, with the group by and without group by. Okay, with respect to the aggregate function, we can able to use this aggregate function with the group by and without group by also, right? So similarly, you can use the count alone here. You can do the count. It will return you. It will, what it will return? It will return number of rows. Okay, it will count the number of rows with respect to this pressure. Similarly, for min, max, everything you can able to do it. So this is called as aggregate function. with the group by and without group by. So this is the basic difference. Hope you guys are clear in this. Until this, you are very clear, and please try to do practice parallelly with me. Okay. Otherwise, you will forget the small things which I have mentioned. Please try to do parallelly with me. So now we have what we have completed. So we have completed the difference between count star and count of column and aggregate functions with and without group by, right? So with and without group by. So now what we are going to do is we are going to do the difference between the select column name and count. Okay. So if I am going to give some column name and then aggregate function, this is some column name with the count star. Let me show you how it will react. Okay. How it will take the null values. The main difference is with respect to the null values only. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, see here, I'm okay. We will select we will go for this itself. Sorry, okay. We will go for the item invoice details. Okay. So I want to calculate count the number of item groups for each item group like this. Okay. So for each item group, so I'm going to get the output like this in my Postgres. Okay, for this alone. And yeah, I want to calculate the sum. Then it will be very meaningful if you choose the sum and average anything. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the number of each item group. The number of items in each item group. In item group. Right? So here select what is the column name? Item group. Right? And I'm going to count the number of rows. Okay. I'm going to just count the number of rows, not the rate or anything. Not, I'm not going to do all those things. I'm just going to count the number of rows. So rice is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. And oil is this much. And veg is this much. Okay. I want just count alone. So I'm giving this item group inside the count. Okay. From what is the table name? Item master. And now what I want is I want to group this item. Okay. I want to do some group by on this item group. Group by item group. Right. So you can see here. I will connect it with the Postgres. Okay. Not getting copied. I'm copying it again and pasting. Okay, this is not okay. I'm not connected with our item master. What is the spelling? Okay, there is no underscore is there, I think. Okay. See here, it will count the number of items. So for pulses, I'm having 8 count. For oil, I'm having, these are all the subgroup, right? So for veg, I'm having 9 items. And rice, I'm having, then rice varieties, I'm having, there are 5 varieties of rice are there, 9 varieties of veg are there, and then 4 varieties of oil, and 8 varieties of pulse are there, right? So this is how we did. So there are how many varieties of veg? 9 varieties of veg. Veg 1, veg 2, veg 3, like that. We are having 9 varieties. So this is how we did. So in order to find the difference, okay, in order to find the difference between select column name and this one, what we need is some null values. So in this, we don't have null values. In order to show you the difference, I will connect with the flight again. Okay, I will connect with the flight again. And okay, we will go for the same tail number itself. Okay, we will go for the tail number itself. See here. Now, what I want is, I want to select the count of, okay, I want to select the number of a count of the tail number. Okay, for each tail number, for each group, group by how many entries are there with respect to the tail number. For each tail number, how many entries are there? Which means that particular flight with the tail number, for example, 123, the in that five, among the 5 lakh records, among the 5 lakh records means that is 1 month record, right? Among that 1 month record, that particular flight travels how many times? So that is the logic behind that. See here, it doesn't includes the null value. See, here is the null value and it took the count as 0. It doesn't includes. Why? Because we have given it as an count of that particular column name inside the count. So it will exclude the null values and it will see only the number of entries, okay, without null values in this particular tail number. For this particular column tail number, it will consider only the number of rows, okay, without null value. So this is the first thing with the column name. We have completed this one. So now I want to show you the difference, how it is calculating for count star. How it is calculating for count star. I'm same thing. I'm grouping it by the tail number, but I'm giving it as a star. Now see the difference of the in and output. You can see the null value. You can see the count of null value. Before, if I give the column name, what is the null value? It doesn't consider the null value. The count is 0, right? Now it has considered the null value. Why? Because I have given the, it doesn't count star. Star is nothing but all the rows. You have to consider all the rows. I'm giving instruction it as a, you have to consider all the rows. Okay, that is the instruction we are giving here. You have to consider, including null values, you have to consider. But if I give the tail number here, it means that just ignore the null values and give me the count of the tail number which is having the entries. Just exclude the null values. That is the main difference, and that is the point you need to understood. Okay. Hope you guys are clear until this point. So what I'm going to do is now, okay, all these 3 points complete. We have completed all these 3 points. And one more thing I want to tell you is how to give more than one aggregate function. Okay, from that we will finish off. Okay, so for example, now I'm going to give 2 aggregate function in single query. Okay, aggregate function. So let us see how we can do it. So for example, mm, okay, I will take the item master as an example. Okay, I'm going to connect it with the Postgres. Now what I'm going to do is I want we will take this item master or invoice details or anything. Okay. Mm. Okay, we will take this invoice details itself. So in this, what I want is I want to can stop the recording.